Good afternoon. Happy 4th of July. It's hotter than heck where I'm at. I hope you're having a great time and enjoying, hopefully, your day off, celebrating 4th and 250th celebration of the creation of our country. So, yay. Today, I've got something. I posted a pod clip short a while ago. The concept was hell does not exist. So if you look at the near-death experience data and you listen to the accounts, you never, hardly ever hear anybody say they make references to hell when they're talking about their life review, especially for people who had distressing or trauma or drama-filled lives. It was like hell. I felt like I was in hell. It was a hellish experience. They're talking about the life review. So I posted that thing and it's basically saying that hell doesn't exist. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about and being judged or any kind of a gatekeeper who's going to say that you can't get in because you're a bad person and you're a sinner and there's judgment and there's sin and you're going to go to hell for eternity and there's no reincarnation. In other words, what I was trying to say is the near-death experience data doesn't support those conclusions. It's just not what you learn from studying near-death experience data. I published that short. I have accounts on 7, 8 different channels on social media, and I published that short on most of them. And I got a lot of comments back going, "That's not true. You don't know what you're talking about. Look into distressing near-death experiences." I said, okay, fair pushback. Let me take a hard look at distressing near-death experiences. So I did. And this article that I published today is the results of my analysis. It's actually pretty fascinating the way it worked out. The results of what I came up with as a result of my own analysis are pretty astounding. Here's what it comes down to. Let me just give you the background here. So the foundational study was published in 1992 by Dr. Bruce Greyson and Nancy Evans Bush. So that's been out there for a long time. They looked into distressing near-death experiences and they published this report. One thing that jumps out at that is they put a range. Well, we think it's somewhere between 1% and 20%. In other words, we don't have a clue. If you don't know if it's, that wide of a spread should scream at you, something's wrong, okay? I started looking into these things and I'm doing more on it, okay? I'm not done, but I pretty quickly reached a conclusion. So the one that jumped out at me, there was a woman who had a near-death experience. She had some chronic health issues and they were going to put her into a coma. It was an induced coma. In other words, you're going to go into a coma on purpose, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to fix what is your health condition, and you'll come out of the coma on the other side. That was the plan. And this was one of the key cases that was used to say that distressing near-death experiences exist. Okay, so I looked at it hard. Now, I have already done my research into DMT, the way that when you take DMT, you see, purple entities. And no matter who you are, no matter where you are, and especially intravenous titrated long duration DMT trip, people will go back to the same place every time. They'll run into the same entities and they'll have conversations and they'll remember them. The people on the other side, the purple entities on the other side, will remember that you were there. And it doesn't matter. We're talking thousands and thousands of documented cases here where this is apparently what happens. People go to the other side, they trip in DMT, and they run into purple entities. Okay. Then another one came up, and it was called Lanmaoa asiatica. It's this Chinese mushroom, which basically does the same thing. If you take this mushroom and it's not prepared correctly, because it's food, right? If you cook it correctly, then the compound that's in there that causes this effect is destroyed, and you don't have this effect. But if it's not prepared correctly, then you end up seeing little people. And I mean, it's called Lilliputian hallucinations, okay? Little people. Now, same thing. If you take that mushroom, you're gonna see little people. So it's really easy to reach the conclusion, and this is what I call frequency shifting. So you can change your perspective and you can see things that you're not normally supposed to see thanks to different combinations of drugs. Back to this case of the woman who had the coma and was going to be medically induced into a coma. What was she given? I don't know. She probably wasn't given DMT and this Chinese mushroom. It was probably some other chemical. While she's in the coma, she had these hellscape kinds of visions. So burning buildings and buildings falling down and fire and brimstone and all of these hellscape kinds of scenes. Those are the parts that do not line up with a normal, quote, run-of-the-mill, seen thousands of them, peaceful, loving, caring, kind of a near-death experience. That's not what happened to her in that part of her experience. Remember, now she was in a coma for days. I think it was 12 days or something like that. Later on in her experience, she has what I would describe as a normal, regular, everyday, run-of-the-mill, loving, near-death experience. Kind of as expected, all right? So after her medical treatment, she comes out of the coma and wakes up and tells her story. Well, how did it go? Oh, well, I saw these hellscape scenes, but then I had this, normal near-death experience. So I kind of really easily and quickly picked up on the fact that is most likely going to be the early part of the coma-inducing drugged part. In other words, clearly on a lot of drugs, but not dead, okay? Alive, heartbeat, nothing indicating that. And here's if you put somebody in a coma for 12 days, you don't know when they might have checked out, right? And remember, there was I don't know if I mentioned this, but there was also some concern that she might not survive this procedure. That there was some concern that if we put you into this coma, we're going to try to do what we need to do to fix what's killing you, but it might not be successful. Apparently, part A of this is the drug-induced, like DMT, like the Chinese mushroom or something like that, causing these visions or, bad situations, but not the near-death experience part. Later, then she actually did flatline. She had a normal near-death experience, much more like you would expect from someone who had a normal near-death experience. So I was able to, when I look at this, I go, yeah, you know what this is? This is just two events that's been conflated into one. And then when she tells a story, she tells it all as one story, because that's clearly how she remembers. So I think it's a mix. I think it's two separate experiences that get rolled into one. That kind of goes back to the frequency shifting thing. I think that's really what happened, This also, the other thing too, what it comes down to is that drugs can affect a brain, but they can't affect a soul. I also wrote an article about that, or have looked into this, that there are lots, and I mean 1.2 gigabutt tons of people who have died from overdoses and then had a near-death experience. And they're on the drugs and literally tripping balls up to the point where they die from the overdose of drugs, and then brain goes crystal clear, okay? Your soul cannot be drugged. Your soul does not have a brain. Drugs do not affect your soul. They affect your body. They affect your brain. They can cause things like the DMT and the purple people and the mushrooms and all of that stuff, but drugs don't affect your soul. All right, that is what it comes down to, is really just bad hygiene on the data. If you're doing this kind of analysis, you have to make sure that what you're looking at is clean and pure. And if you can't, well, then that should be your first. It's like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. And that's why when I look at near-death experiences, I insist on, okay, you can't just start off by saying, and then I had a near-death experience. Oh, wait a minute, back up. What caused that? Show me the clinical death there. Don't just start telling me about what you think happened. There's two groups of people that look at these distressing near-death experience accounts and they point to them and say, here, look at this. One of them are people who have a heavy religious bias. And again, these are the people that were responding in the comment section to my publication saying that hell does not exist, because that challenges the core fundamental belief systems of several religions. And they go, well, yeah, hell exists. See, it's like, in other words, I believe hell exists, therefore I'm going to grab onto these distressing near-death experiences, not look at them very hard and just go, hey, there you go, there's that article right there, and so I said, all right, let me see. And that's what I come up with, all right? And then there's more coming on this. I'm not going to drag it all out here in one article, but I've got a lot more to say on this subject, so that's coming down the road. And then the other ones, of course, are the doctors and the medical community that are pointing to this kind of thing, and they're saying, see, this is just more indication that the entire NDE field is all just a bunch of hooey. What it comes down to a large part, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care about the criticism too much. When I see pushback, like about the distressing near-death experiences in response to hell doesn't exist, I go, oh, okay, maybe that's an opportunity for me to look at something and to figure it out a little bit harder and dig into it a little bit better. I think you'll see when I get done with this series, because this is going to be a series of maybe, I don't know how many articles or how many things I'm going to do on this until I cover it completely. But it's important, and it's very, very interesting, and it holds up to scrutiny, because I did a lot of that too. It's like, okay, let me go back and forth here and let me write out the whole thesis and then try to shoot holes in it, and I was able to deflect all of those. So anyway, that's the story for today. Don't forget to like, follow, share if you are seeing this kind of stuff, and if you like it, then if you subscribe, you'll see more of it. That's the way the things grow. I hope you do enjoy this. I hope you have an amazing 4th of July. I hope you have fun with your family and your friends, and you stay cool, and peace out.